Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Command Score studio. Welcome to the show. Okay, so we are about 1 week out, at least the time of this recording, so it just depends on when you're watching this. Hi from the future, or from the past, I guess. Regardless, on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about what commanders are already making a massive impact, which are probably going to be the most popular ones out there based on the trends right now, and what cards in the 99 from Foundations and Foundations Jumpstart are already getting placed preemptively into decks as well. Let's jump into it. First up, let's start with the commanders. Shrewfus Sprout Sire apparently is the belle of the ball when it comes to Magic Foundations. And this one's from Jumpstart, but again, I'm grouping them all together. They all come out on the exact same day, okay? So this one is at 440 decks already. And again, we are like less than a week from these ones being spoiled. So yeah, this is seeing a lot of attention. It's one of my, it's definitely one of the ones that's up there for me where it's like, yeah, it's a cool commander. It's a powerful commander. It's not an overpowered, oh my goodness, this is absurd commander where it's like, yeah, maybe I'm not going to build that one, but it's very cool, I guess, to say what it does. 1/1 trampling sapperling, very first sapperling creature we've ever seen, actually. That's not a creature token and not a changeling for 3 mana in green. Whenever a sapperling you control deals counter damage to player, make that many 1/1 green sapperling creature tokens. Basically, hit hard, make more. Hit hard with all those, make even more. Very simple, very straightforward, very fun. Anthems are very good with it. So yeah, 440 decks. I expect that number to keep going up. Next up, the one that I actually expected to be at the #1 spot when I was like, you know what, before I'm looking, just in my mind, what do I think? Niv Mizzet Visionary. This is the one where I'm like, oh no. When I saw it right away, I was like, this is gonna be something, yeah. Okay, 408 decks to its name already. And again, this is just based off of EDH rec numbers, so it's good to see just general trends on where things are. And this one's already seeing a lot of attention. In the player that's playing it, you need to give them a lot of attention in that you need to take them out quickly, because once this gets going, that is a ball that is not going to be stopped. It is rolling down a hill, and it is going to just steamroll you. There's a lot of different metaphors that use right there. That I meant like snowballing, and then I messed that up. But that's okay. We're just going to keep going. 5/5 Dragon Wizard flying for 6 mana. And is it? You have no maximum hand size. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards. Now, I already did an episode on the tier rankings. Make sure you check that episode out for Foundations. Also did an episode on what commanders I'm going to be building potentially from this. Like which ones are, in my wheelhouse. Which ones am I not going to build for one reason or another. Don't want to spoil things too much, but this is on the I will never build because, yeah, this is pretty gross. It is a very powerful commander that really can just take over the game with like one spell. So you're just like, yeah, hey, I got a 1 mana spell that deals 3 damage to each opponent. Congratulations, I drew 9 cards for 1 mana. Also, I'm going to be just throwing out a bunch of different like group slug type things that just keep pinging opponents. So there you go. It's going to be doing a lot of damage throughout the game, drawing a lot of cards. Already 408 decks to its name. That's pretty crazy. Next up, Slinza the Spike Stampede. This is awesome that Slinza is up there, 205. Now, there is a decent drop-off between those first two. Again, first one was at, 440 for Shrewfus, 408 for Niv Mizzet, now down to 205. That's still a good amount. Again, we're only like a couple of days from when all these were spoiled, and we've got a week left until it actually starts and actual cards are going to be able to be purchased, that kind of stuff. So yes, 200 is still a good amount already, and a good amount of tension for Slinza, a 5/5 beast for 5 mana in green, but it's a Gruul commander. Beast spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. Each other beast creature you control enters the additional counter on it. Whenever it and other creature with power 4 or greater enters, you may pay 2 mana in Gruul. When you do, it fights our creature on control. Now, this is a commander that is a tribal commander, but it is for a tribe that has a ton of creatures in it, and ones that you are like, oh wait, that's a beast? Oh wait, that's a beast? Awesome, cool. It's a lot of support for the creatures themselves, just not a lot of general support for the tribe itself. It's not like, elves where it's like you've got like 10, 15, 20, 30 different lord effects out there if you want them, essentially. It's like, yeah, when an elf does this, you do this. I mean, even more than that, I'm sure. When an elf does this, you do that. Or, all your elves get +1/+1. that kind of stuff. Slinza is supporting a tribe that does not have a lot of tribal support, but has a lot of creatures to pick from, including some really excited ones. So yeah, that's awesome that this is getting some attention. Next up, oh god, Tiny Bones. Okay, 202 next to its name, good for 4th place right now. 1/3 Skeleton Rogue for 2 mana in black. Whenever an opponent discards a card, exile from their graveyard, they stash counter on it. During your turn, you may play cards you don't own with stash counters on them from exile. Mana of any type can be spent at the Castle of Spells. 4 mana in total tap. Each opponent discards a card. Activate only as a sorcery. Now, this is not every single playgroup out there. I will say, though, a lot of playgroups out there, a lot of LGS players out there don't necessarily like to top deck the entire game. So they don't necessarily like playing against full just discard decks. And not saying there's anything wrong with a discard deck. I'm just saying that, many Commander players out there that are a bit more casual, even my playgroup, which is, on the kind of higher power end of casual, not CDH, probably wouldn't be, welcome to play, a full discard deck all that often, essentially. So, yeah, and again, to build this one, you're incentivized to literally just make your opponents have no hands. You're just like, okay, yeah, you all discarded your cards. They're mine now, essentially. And then when you get more cards, they'll make you discard those. And throughout the game, you're just going to keep discarding cards. And basically, your opponent's going to be top decking the entire game, which is a good strategy for you, but maybe not the best play experience for the entire table. So, again, if you're going to build around this one, please ask ahead of time. And if you are at an LGS and you pull this one out, either don't be surprised if your opponents are like, hey, could you maybe play with something else? Or if you do play this, if you get targeted super hard, super early because they don't want all their hands discarded and they want to take you out quickly, so they don't do that. So just a little warning on this one. Again, Tiny Bones is like the perfect storm for a commander that is in a theme with full discard that is, again, on the more salty end of the scale when it comes to strategies in casual commander, but the art is adorable. Again, it is like a little skeleton dude that steals things. Cute, right? So if it was like a really evil looking something, that just like looked disgusting, then like I think it would see less play. I'm going to be honest with that. Really, I think the appeal of Tiny Bones being like, oh, it's so cute, but it makes you discard, are two different things. Now, obviously, yeah, again, if your group's okay with it, go ahead and play it. But this is one that I would say ask first, most likely, okay? Next up, Ophelia, Viper, Whisperer down to 158 decks, but still, again, a decent amount right now at 5th place. This is a Gorgon Assassin with Death Touch for 2 mana in black, but it's actually in Golgari. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 1 Golgari. If you do, create a 1/1 black snake creature with Death Touch, 5 mana in total. Until end of turn, whenever one or more Gorgons and or snakes you control deal combat to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. Now, this commander is, again, one that's like part of 2 tribes kind of that don't have a ton of support. Like there are, and someone pointed this out as well, like, yeah, I believe Naga have been changed to snakes. Is that correct? I believe as well. Like they've updated that. So sure, there's some support from that. There are some snakes out there as well. And yeah, there's a couple of Gorgons too. That being said, it's a very powerful, effect when you can actually hit your opponents and make them lose half their life. There's certain combos that you can utilize with that as well. Like, hey, Wound Reflection. You lost half your life. Cool. You lose your other half your life at the end of the turn. You lose the game. So there's some cool things that you can do with this one. I did not expect this one to be this popular, actually. And yeah, it's pretty exciting that people are very excited about, again, a kind of new direction for certain tribes that really haven't seen the light of day when it comes to support. So there you go. Next up, 6th place we've got at 151 commander decks to its name right now. Everett, Viceroy of Plunder, a 2/2 vampire soldier with flying for 3 mana in black. Sacrifice a creature artifact, put a counter on it. If the sacrificed permanent was a treasure, it gains lifelink until end of turn. Activate as a sorcery. When it dies, you can pay 1 in Rakdos. When you do, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. Here's the thing. This is a commander that's not in my wheelhouse because of the activate only as a sorcery. That really kind of just makes me not want to build around certain commanders when it comes to that kind of a limitation, because sometimes I think those limitations are just thrown around by wizards when they don't need to be, and then not utilized on other cards that they really want to be popular. But yes, this is one that I can definitely see the appeal to it. It is one where, again, like you can sacrifice more to things. If you build in treasures in the deck too, and many players out there really enjoy treasures, cool. You get to sacrifice treasures too, give it lifelink so that when this does die, you can gain a bunch of life too. It is like aristocrat style with like some treasure synergies in there as well, and like a giant fling effect with it too. That being said, although it's not one that I'd build because the sorcery speed, some people don't mind that limitation. So yeah, already 151 decks at 6th place. Next up, Gornog the Red Reaper, a 2/3 Minotaur worth haste for 3 mana in red. Cowards can't block warriors. Whenever one or more warriors you control attack a player, target creature the player controls becomes a coward. Attacking warriors you control get +X/+0. Rex number cowards your opponent's control. This is a really cool commander. It's a cool design for a commander. Again, the cowards and warriors synergies. I love that. It is like you got to build a decent amount of warriors in there essentially to ensure that you are, well, obviously benefiting from attacking players, making some of their creatures cowards, at least one each, I should say, and then also benefiting your team when you are swinging. So this is a tribal commander that is pretty specific, and it can do some pretty interesting things, kind of like a decent pump effect. I'm a little surprised to see this one this high right now because it is kind of like a let's be aggressive, let's swing deck, but I do think like the whole cowards, warriors thing is just kind of a cool thing that people, want to build around. Okay, next up. This one shocked me. I thought this one would be so much higher up there. And again, there is time for things to change with this list, but as of right now, Coma World Eater, 116 decks to its name. I thought this would be higher. 8/12 Serpent for 7 mana in Simic. The spell can't be countered. Trample Ward 4. Deals combination to player. Create 4 3/3 blue serpent creature tokens named Coma's Coil. Now, this is one where it's like, yeah, Coma, the original one, pretty popular commander out there. Also, very, very, very salty commander out there. I believe it's in the top 100 saltiest cards of last year. Or this year, I guess, 2024 salt scores. That being said, this one, no, not quite as salty. It can't be countered. It's got Ward 4, so it's really hard to deal with still. But it's not like perpetual value, just literally on every single turn, while also having ways to shut down your opponent's things and tapping them down. This is like, okay, I'm a big, heavy hitter. When I hit, I get an army. And I hit 4 3/3s, 12 power across 4 bodies. It's quite nice. And obviously there's ways to double that up with double strike. Cool. And also, turn this commander to a 1-shot KO quite easily, quite quickly. At the very least, a 2-shot KO. But yeah, I thought this one would be a bit higher up on the scale because, again, there are some pretty cool things that you can do with making all those 3/3s. That being said, again, maybe just like the original Coma, again, it's 7 mana, but like you're getting value every single turn. This one's like, okay, I get it in play. I don't get any immediate value from it. Like that one you don't either, but you get value again on your opponent's turns. This one you have to wait till your next turn to get value from it, and you have to get through to do so. It's not just free value for doing nothing. So it is interesting. Again, like I thought that this one would be a bit higher, but maybe I'm just wrong on it. And yeah, we shall see. This one's a bit more Voltron-y than the other one was, so maybe that's part of it as well. Next up, at 9th place, we've got 102 decks for Rev Tithe Extractor, a 3/3 human rogue for 4 mana in black. Whenever you attack target creature, gains death touch of turn. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combination to player, create a treasure token, then look at the top card of that player's library and exile it face down. You may cast the card for as long as it remains exiled. Yeah, it's a Ragavan, but for all of your opponents, kind of. Like, and 1 creature per each opponent. So yeah, basically, you get a bunch of low-to-the-ground evasive creatures down, like Flying Men type strategy is what it's usually called, and all of a sudden you start swinging out at your opponents, you get through on them, you get to steal the cards off the top of their library, and you get treasures. So you can do some pretty cool things with this one. I'm not surprised to see this one in the top 10 at all right now for, the early days of building around these commanders. But yeah, this is one that I would expect actually personally to move up maybe a little bit in the rankings, but we shall see. And then out of the top 10, let's round things out with Zul Ashur Lich Lord, a 2/2 zombie warlock, ward pay 2 life for 2 mana in black. Tap, you may cast target zombie creature card from your graveyard this turn. Yeah, zombies are something in Magic that's basically always going to be popular. It is a tribe that has been very well supported basically ever since the very beginnings of Magic and has gotten a lot of great creatures and great commanders throughout the years. This is a commander that goes in a different direction than some other zombie commanders do. It is mono black, utilize zombies out of the graveyard, with like a tap ability, which is pretty cool, so you could find ways to maybe use and abuse that. It's also like, again, the ward pay 2 life, that's not nothing. Your opponent has to like actually decide like, okay, I'm willing to target that and like lose some life. But still, like it is low to the ground, zombies, going it about in a somewhat different way. So yeah, I can see this one being quite popular as well. As popular as zombies are. Now, Really quick, I'm not going to actually kind of break down these next commanders. I'm just going to give you the numbers for how many decks they are in case you are curious, and then we will jump over to the 99 cards and what is popular right now. First up, here we go. And then this is, okay, 11th and then 12th, and then so on and so forth, all the way through 39th. I'm just going to give you the number of decks so far. Neardiv, Devious Diver, 93. Dionys, Elvish Archshrewd, 85 decks. Alesha, Who Laughs at Fate, 84 decks. Expected that to be higher. Third, Mare of Destiny, 79 decks. Loot, Exuberant Explorer, 75 decks right now. Expected that to be higher as well. Fumius the Infestation. I'm personally glad this one's only at 70 decks right now because this is a disgustingly powerful commander. It when built in certain ways. All right, General Crete the Boltbringer, 67 decks to its name. Elenda, Saint of Dusk. We've got 65 decks to its name. Arabo, the First Fang, 58 decks to its name. Kaikar, 52 decks to its name. Zamon, Paradox Sculptor, 52 decks to its name as well. Sinette, Jelly Drover, 47. Ozox, I love you, Ozox, the Clattering King, 40 decks to its name. Plagon, also love you, Plagon, the Allure of the Beach, 36 decks to its name. Tycho, the Patient Avalanche, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, 30 decks to its name. We've got Bragone, Soldier of Meltus, never know how to say that name, 27 decks to its name. Herska, love you as well. Sweet Tooth, 25 decks to its name. Ivora, Insatiable Air, 21 decks to its name. Cleon, Mary Champion, One Punch Man, 14 decks to its name. Cure the Rising Tide, 13 decks to its name. Koala, a Johnny's Pride Mate, 11 decks to its name. Samila, I don't know how to say that one either. Meletian Poet, 9 decks to its name. Kellen, Planar Trailblazer, 9 decks to its name as well. Braulio Sephiroth Band, 8 decks to its name. Puljamar Illusionist, 6 decks to its name. Anep, Vizier of Hazaret, I was wrong on this one. I said it might not have any ever. Or maybe I said like 12 in a year or something like that, but it's already got 4 decks to its name. Nazar the Velvet Fang, 4 decks to its name as well. Sutina, Speaker of the Tadru, basically Farcave and Elf in the Command Zone, 3 decks to its name. And then finally, if I didn't scroll down too far, Erdnan, Dramoka Warrior, I am so sorry. Somebody help Erdnan out. 0 decks to its name right now. Okay, moving on to the 99, and I will say there are a couple in here, not too many, but there are a couple in here that are kind of cheaty when it comes to their numbers because there were some like really early previews like a long time ago, and Helpful Hunter was one of them. It is already in 2,243 decks to its name, which is much more than anything else. So this is, I mean, a card that definitely can be popular. It is a 1/1 cat for 2 mana and white. When this creature enters, draw a card. Will this end up being the most popular card in the set at the end of the day? In the 99, I should say. I don't know. I mean, obviously, like the other cards are going to have more time to catch up because this card has been out there for, I think, well over a month at this point. Regardless. It's a good card for obviously tribal decks, a low-ground cat that replaces itself with another card. Obviously, blink decks as well. Kind of other decks are using like, Wall of Omens, those kinds of cards, or like whatever the elf one is. I can't remember the name of the elf that's just a 1/1 enters battlefield, draw a card for 2. Yeah, it's a pretty solid card. Next up, Vengeful Blood Witch, 954 decks to its name. This is also another early preview. 1/1 Vampire Warlock for 2 mana in black. Whenever this creature or another creature you control dies, target opponent loses life, you gain 1 life. This is basically a worst version of Blood Artist because it only counts your creatures. That being said, it's still a very good card. And literally, we are seeing so many Blood Artist type effects that, like, at some point, in like 20 years from now, you should be able to just grab a handful of them and chuck them all into a deck, and you've got all Blood Artist decks. So there you go. It's a card that's definitely going to see play in Aristocrat-style strategies. Anything that's like, hey, yeah, sacrifice things, drain, cool. Vampire decks as well. Good low-to-the-ground drain effect. Next up, speaking of a vampire, though, one that was not spoiled early and already is seeing a ton of presence and builds right now. 937 decks, good enough for 3rd place out of the 99. Bloodthirsty Conqueror. A 5/5 Vampire Knight for 5 mana in black, flying Death Touch. Whenever opponent loses life, you gain that much life. This is Exquisite Blood as a creature, and I know there's many of you out there that are very excited about this one. But the second that this one was spoiled, and I'm pretty sure in the quick take as well, I was like, why did they print this? Who was asking for Exquisite Blood again? And apparently some people were. So yeah, basically this combos with a ham sandwich. There is so many cards out there that are like, hey, whenever you gain life, opponents lose life. Like Sanguine Bond, but also just like individual ones. Like if you gain a life, your opponents lose 1 life. It doesn't matter if it's 1, if it's 40, whatever it is, it's an infinite combo because you gain a life, opponents lose life, you gain a life, opponents lose life, just keeps going back and forth. Even if you're not comboing this is such a powerful card in Commander because, again, you've got 3 opponents. and life is just going to be lost here, there, and everywhere for whatever reason, even if you're not the one doing it. If an opponent attacks another opponent and they lose 10 life, congratulations, you just gain 10 life for literally doing nothing. So yeah, this is a very, very, very powerful card that can be a combo as well. Next up, Heir Apparent. Oh my goodness. 4th place right now, 903 decks to its name. I love the kinds of cards when it's like a card can have any number of cards named this, or a deck can have any number of cards if I could talk. Yes, this is yet another one of those, hey, I break the rules of every format, but especially Commander, which is a singleton format. Build a deck around this, have a lot of fun. 2/2 Rabbit Noble for 2 mana in white. When this creature enters, create a number of 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens equal to the number of other creatures you control named Heir Apparent. Yeah, you get a lot of creatures in play that are exactly this. You blink them, you make a ton of them. This is a card that's not like, oh, I chuck it in any deck. No, this is a card that you're like, I build a deck completely around this. This is the first thing that you think about, and you're like, let's find a commander that works well with this. My thoughts are like Yorion, Blink. Oh my goodness, fun times for you. But yeah, a lot of good options for that. Next up, 5th place, Twin Flame Tyrant, 809 decks to its name. Not surprised to see this one up here as well. 3/5 Dragon with flying for 5 mana in red. If a source you control deal damage to an opponent or permanent opponent controls, double that damage instead. Yeah, kind of like gratuitous violence-ish. I think that one might be just creatures, but still, any sources. This is basically gratuitous violence on a very relevant creature type. This is, I mean, I'm not going to say like a shoe-in for any dragon deck out there, but kind of, because this is a, hey, do you want to double up the damage of your hard-hitting dragons and make them hit even harder? Congratulations! Let's do that on a reasonably costed, again, 3/5 flyer for 5 mana that basically hits for 6 damage instead. If you had an Dragon deck, this costs 4 to get out. My goodness, gross. Very powerful. Again, outside of Dragon Tribal, of course, these could definitely see play in anything that wants to double up damage as well. So group slug, ping strategies as well, or just literally like aggressive combat strategies too. Extra combats too. Next up, 9 Lives Familiar. Yet another one that kind of cheated because this one was spoiled a long time ago. So it's had some time to build up to 6th place, 709 decks to its name. 1/1 cat for 3 mana in black. This creature enters with 8 revival counters on it if you cast it. So that's good. And when this creature dies, if it had a revival counter on it, return to the battlefield, 1 fewer revival counter on it to begin next end step. Cats have 9 lives. Quite, I mean, a cool design. I really like this design, but very, very, very powerful in, like, let's say an aristocrat style strategy, especially if you maybe have a proliferate type effect with it too. But yeah, being able to essentially just, oh, I sacrifice it. Okay, I get all these benefits from sacrificing it in my aristocrat style strategy. Cool. And then next turn comes back. I sacrifice it. Next turn it comes back. I sacrifice it. Turn it comes back. I sacrifice it. You just literally can sacrifice this thing, what, like 9 times, essentially? And so by doing so, you're going to get a lot of value out of it. And of course, again, if you have proliferate type effects, or a way to just like get it back to your hand and recast it and start over again. Yay! This thing is never going to leave the field. Okay, next, I mean, leave the field for long. Next up, Anthem of Champions. This is yet another one that did cheat a little bit. Enchantment, when it came to being spoiled early. Enchantment and Anthem of Champions for 2 mana in Selesnya, creature you control at ++1. Very simple, very effective. It just kind of shows the power creep a little bit of just where we started off in Magic and where we are now. Anthems like Gaia's Anthem used to be Glorious Anthem, 3 mana essentially, right? It was, Gaia's Anthem is 1 green. I think Glorious Anthem is 1 white. And it pumped your entire team. This one, yes, has a more specific mana cost because it's across 2 colors, but still, like, 2 mana for the exact same effect. Yeah, it is very good. Essentially, if you have a deck that utilizes Anthems, it's a, not shoo-in to go in the deck, but it is a heavy consideration because it's so efficient, so low to the ground. So Enchantress builds, of course, can consider it, as well as any kind of an Anthem strategy, a go-wide strategy that wants to pump as well. 572 decks right now, 7th place. Next up, this one, it's got to just keep going up. It is going to be one of the most popular cards in this set. I have no doubt about that at all. It is going to get up there. I mean, again, if you take out, and I'll go through a couple more after, the top 10, because there are 1, 2, 3, 4 cards that I've already talked about that were kind of spoiled ahead of time. So if you take those out, this is technically in 4th place right now, and I expect this one to keep going up. And Heir Apparent kind of has a different kind of, thing to it because it's like a build a deck around kind of thing. Okay, anyways, source your 5 mana in black, but you're never gonna pay that. I mean, you can pay that, and that's completely fine. And still, if this was just the card, 5 mana sorcery in black, each player sacrifices 13 creatures of their choice, it would still see a good amount of play because, yeah, a good amount of decks out there like to force edict effects. Essentially, it's a good kind of wrath that gets around like indestructibility and that kind of stuff as well. So it's a good way to wipe out creatures. In certain kind of decks actually want to sacrifice their own creatures anyways. That being said, you may pay a single black mana rather than pay a spell's mana cost if there are 13 more creatures on the battlefield. This is Blasphemous Act in black, basically. Blasphemous Edict. Blasphemous Pact, they could have called it. But yes, this is essentially, hey, yeah, a 1 mana board wipe that just gets rid of everything on the board. And it's not that hard to get to 13 creatures because you're in commander. And literally that's what, like, about 3 to 4 creatures per person in play, which is not a lot at all. And again, if you're like in a certain type of strategy that like has a good amount of creatures that can kind of force the issue and you actually want to sacrifice those creatures too, cool. Like in a aristocrat style strategy, cool. You're gonna maybe even get there yourself and basically like, oh yeah, cool. All right, well, I've got like 20 creatures in play, so oh, do you all have like less than 13? I'm so sorry. Your creatures are gone. Mine go away, but I get value off of them, and I still have other ones left to go. And maybe I have like tokens that I make when I, sacrifice creatures or whatnot. So yeah, this is a very good card. Again, will it see as much play as like Blasphemous Act itself? I don't think so. Personally, I could be wrong on that. Blasphemous Act is, again, in red, and in red, like, that's an incredibly efficient board wipe. This is like a very efficient board wipe. Black has more board wipes out there typically, though. And this one is like not quite Toxic Deluge in my opinion when it comes to like power level, but it's up there. It's a very powerful card. It's one of the top black board wipes I think of all time. Next up, 9th place, Raise the Past. 439 decks to its name. 439, I should say. Source for 4 mana in white. Return all creature cards with mana value 2 or less if you're greater to the battlefield. Do you have a low to the ground creature strategy? Do you have a self-mill strategy with low to the ground creatures? This is a massive, massive, massive way to reanimate a lot of them. I'm actually surprised to see this one up here above some other ones, but yeah, it's a very cool card. Next up, we've got Scrawling Trawler at 10th place. This is a 3/2 Phyrexian Construct for 3 mana, 436 decks right now. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 1 life. So, yeah, this is a kind of like group hug but group slug card in a way where it's like, yeah, I'm Howling Mine, but also I'm going to punish you because I'm Underworld Dreams. So it's like both of them combined. This is a card that can fit into, again, different kinds of strategies out there, but mostly like, hey, do you want to punish opponents while wheeling and giving them a lot of pain with, again, Underworld Dreams, those kinds of effects, Shieldred type decks as well. Yeah, it's a shoe-in for that kind of a strategy. So, yeah, not for every deck, but for the decks that want it, they're like, yes, please. Okay, next up, a couple of more just to show off some ones, because, again, we had some in the top 10 that were kind of cheating a little bit. I mean, their cards are going to see play. There are good cards, like the cat, the vampire, you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, moving on, Mossborn Hydra. This one has 432 decks to its name, a 0/0 Elemental Hydra, so 2 relevant creature types right there. Do keep that in mind. For 3 mana in green, Trample. This creature enters with a counter on it. Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, double the number of counters on this creature. Literally, just in any kind of a green deck. For the vast majority of green decks out there. I mean, I have one deck that has green that's like, no, I'm not using land ramp. Basically, that's my Garth deck, which is all about enchant lands. Or enchanting lands, I should say. That being said, like, the vast majority of green decks are like, yeah, get a bunch of lands in play. Ramp, get lands in play. Cool. Maybe have Evolving Wilds. Crack it. Get lands in play. And all of a sudden, this becomes an absolute monster. Again, it's exponential growth, just going up, up, up in power. Do you have a counter strategy? Do you have a landfall strategy? Do you have a giant creature strategy? Do you have an elemental deck? Do you have a hydra deck? This can be a good shoe-in for those. Or just like a power matter strategy, or a heavy hitter strategy, or stompy green. It's a lot of different strategies that this can fit into. If you just play this onto an open table, it's going to see attention because it's going to get big very, very quickly. Next up, 428 decks to its name, Banner of Kinship. This one I expected to be higher. It's going to keep climbing, though. This is a, not a shoe-in for every single tribal deck out there, but if you have a tribal deck that likes to go wide, it is a very good card for that. Artifact for 5, as it enters, choose a creature type. This artifact enters with a fellowship counter on it. For each creature you control the chosen type, creatures you control the chosen type get +1 for each fellowship counter on this artifact. If you have any proliferate type effects or ways to reset this when you need to, also ways to use and abuse it. That being said, literally just if you play this down and you have a decent amount of creatures of whatever type on the board that you have, again, you have an Elves deck, if you've got a Goblin deck, if you got whatever, again, this can fit in any of them. You just chuck it in there and you're like, oh, okay, cool, yeah. Oh, I got 5 Elves in play, +5/+5 for 5 mana. Yeah, that's worth it. Or, for a Kranko deck, you're like, oh, I've got 20 Goblins in play. Cool. Play this. All of a sudden, you've got plus 20 to all your goblins. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, what coat of arms? Why was that even escaping my mind? It's kind of like a specific coat of arms just for you and just for your specific tribe. So yeah, it's a very, very good card for those types of decks. Next up, Archmage of Runes. This is probably the last one I'm going to really highlight, and I'll go through quickly some other numbers on them, though. 3/6 Giant Wizard for 5 mana in blue. Instant source spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast an instant source spell, draw a card. Yeah, Spellslinger type strategies out there, or just any kind of decks that like to utilize, well, a bunch of instant sorceries. You're going to get a lot of value out of this. It's kind of like Goblin Electromancer meets Archmage Emeritus. That's kind of like the vibe of this one. It doesn't count copy spells, but still, like, you're going to get a good amount of card value. You're going to get a good amount of savings throughout the game with this. And those are two very, very, very important things for a lot of strategies out there. Okay, really quick, just to highlight some numbers. And it's kind of funny that Niv Mizzet Visionary is appearing on this list as well. And the 99. This is the 99 number. So it already, again, has over 400 decks to its name, essentially. But it also is in 367 other decks out there. So Dragon decks, I'm assuming, maybe are considering it. With the no max hand size, and also if they have any kind of like sources, like, oh gosh, there's certain dragons out there, it's like, hey, when something comes into play, ping, or, you know, if it gets targeted, ping, that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, this is already in 367 decks. And also, just of course, if you have any kind of a group slug type strategy or a burn strategy, throw that in there. Yeah. Scythe Cat Cub, 350 decks to its name. Lands, entering, counters on creatures. Yeah, it's going to see a lot of play when it comes to doubling up counters as well. Rev is in there too as well at 334 decks. General Crete, 322 decks. Coma and 306 decks. Now, this is surprising that Coma, I guess it's not that surprising because it is a serpent. So in like Sea Monster Tribal, yeah, that is another like, hey, big sea monster, chuck it in the deck as well. So 306 decks. I believe that means that Coma's actually in more decks than the 99 than it actually is built around currently, which is very interesting. Exemplar of Light, life gain, getting counters, drawing cards, 285 decks to its name right now. Arabo, again, already established cat decks out there, already just chucking Arabo in there. So yeah, it might end up seeing play more in the 99 than it does actually as the commander itself, which is quite interesting. Sire of Seven Deaths, Eldrazi, also just like generic good 7 mana, pretty powerful drop with all those keywords on it. So yeah, if you're playing in a colorless deck or if you have an Eldrazi deck, it's a consideration for those. Or like the, the keyword soup type decks too. High Fae Trickster, basically a Vidalcanori on a Fairy Wizard. Yeah, you flash it in, and yeah, you can cast spells whenever you want. 240 decks to its name. Hinterland Sanctifier, 234 decks to its name. Again, basically another kind of Soul Sister type card. Like, the actual Soul Sisters are better because they count when any creature comes into play. This just counts yours, but again, yet another low to the ground. Hey, cool, gain life whenever creatures come into play. There's a lot of already established decks that want those. Kaido, Cunning Infiltrator with 234 decks to its name. This one's like, hey, like, if you've got a Flying Men deck already, it can be a very valuable card for you. Prideful Parent, this is the last card I'm going to highlight. This was yet another one from the original cards that were spoiled essentially a while back, a month or two ago, whenever it was. 227 decks to its name. This is a 2/2 cat with vigilance. Enters, make a 1/1 cat. So yeah, cat tribal. So as you can see, again, like the vast difference between this, yeah, did have more time to build up, right? Again, 227 decks to its name. But if you go all the way back up to, again, the other cat that was spoiled early, that one's what, at 2,243 decks to its name, again, in first place. So, yeah, things are going to change, when the set actually comes out. There's got to be some adjustments, but I think it's just interesting to see, kind of just get a pulse on this set so far. What's already making impacts? What commanders already being built around? What cards are already being utilized? What cards are going to see a lot of play? What are the chase cards out of the set? And yeah, it's scary that Bloodthirsty Conqueror already is in 937 decks out there. So I guess if you already have Exquisite Blood in a deck, you're just like, yeah, chuck that in that one. But also, Vampire decks can utilize it too. And yeah, it's a scary good card. So yeah, it's interesting to see just these trends. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on these cards. Are there any cards that you think that just are being slept on right now that are going to start just picking up and players are going to start paying more attention to? Any commanders that weren't highlighted that, like they're going to be getting more decks around them? Let everyone know in the comments below. And yeah, I'm excited to see I think it was a very good set. I think they did a good job with it. I think that, yeah, there's a lot of different things for a lot of different players out there, and I do think that players are pretty excited about it seems like. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Comment below with your thoughts on it, and of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.